Hello Internet, this is your daily dose of data science. Today we are going to look at apply method in pandas. So here I have created a sample data frame that we're going to use to see how to do apply. So let me run this cell. Then I'm going to look at how this data frame is created. So this data frame is a data frame that has first name, last name, A and B as the columns, and then this is the data inside it. So we are going to use apply. Apply is a method in pandas data frame series that helps you to apply a function to individual items in a column or in a row. I'm going to show you examples now. So assuming we want to find the number of items to create an extra column that contains the length or the number of items in these lists here, then we could do data frame. The new column is going to be items in A. Then we are going to have assigned it to A, but now we're going to use apply. And we are going to apply len. So we know that len finds the length of items. If we do len and we get this list here, len will show us that this list has 3 items. So we are going to use len, and the len is going to apply to each item in A. So let's run this. Then we look at our data frame. So now we can see that the number of items here is 3, the number of items here is 2, the number of items here 1 2 3 4 5 is 5. Here you don't have any items, that's why the length is 0, and here it's 1. So let's do the same for B. So this is the column that we pick. Then we are applying the length function for each item in that column. So if we run this and that, we have the same for B. The length here is 1, and so forth. If we wanted to sum the number of items in A and B throughout all rows, like 3 plus 1 give us something, 2 plus 1 equals to something, we are still going to use apply, but there is a parameter we're going to supply to apply that will configure it not to not to sum throughout the columns, but it will be summing over the rows. Let's do this. So this, then the column. So this we're going to say total items, and this total items will be the data frame. So this data frame has strings, has lists, but we need only these 2 columns. So we're going to only subset the 2 columns. Then we are going to apply, but now we are going to apply sum, and we are going to limit it to axis equals to 1. Let me first look at this output. Yeah, so this will give us 3 plus 1 is 4, 2 plus 1 is 3. So let's assign it to a column. So now looking at the data frame, now we have total items, which is this plus this gives you 4, this plus this gives you 3, 0 plus 3 gives you that. So we are applying this function to each row. That's why we have this argument here. This argument in apply can be axis equals to 1 or axis equals to 0. Axis equals to 1 means that we are summing over the rows. Then axis equals to 0 is applying the same function but over the columns. We can try it out just to see how it looks like. So data frame, let's pick the 3 columns that are numeric because I want to use some. Then I do dot apply sum, but this time round I'm going to specify the axis equals to 0. So the expectation will be it will be summing over the columns. So this will be 3 plus 2 plus 5 plus 0 plus 1. Then for each of the 3 columns that we have subsetted, and voila, this is what we have. So let me try to look at the data frame and compare. Here we have the data frame, here we have the data frame 3 plus 2, 5, 10, 11. So items in A equals to 11, and the same has happened to items in B. It has summed over the columns when axis equals to 0. But when axis equals to 1, we sum over the rows, and that's why we have in the total items 3 plus 1, and then 3 plus 2 plus 1, and so forth. So apply can be used with other functions. So this is a function that is that comes with Python. It is internally built in Python. We could use apply with our custom functions. The custom function that I want to use now is get squares, and I want to get squares of the list. So I want whenever we supply an argument as a list of values to this function, it should return a list, but each value is squared. So I'm going to say this is get squares. It should take an iterable, and the iterable is a list, and this should return a list. So the return value should be a map. If you don't understand map function, I have a video for it. You can check in my videos. Also with the lambda x should return x times x. I just want to map the x times x in the iterable. The simple explanation is this is a list and this is a list. We are mapping this anonymous function for each item in this list. So the item in this list is the x, and we are returning x times x, and we are mapping this to that. So this is going to return a map object, but what we expect as a return value should be a list. So we're going to make it a list. So this is our function. We can test it with something. Get squares, then the input should be 2, 4, and 17. We have 2 squared is 4, 4 squared is 16, 17 squared is 289 here. So this is what we expect. You give it a list of values, it returns a list of the square of the values. Well, so this is what now we want to apply for A and B because they are the ones which contain lists. So data frame, the new column is going to be A squared, should be data frame A dot apply, then get squares. So our data frame will look like this. This A squared is here, and when you look at A, 1 2 3 1 4 9, because the square of 1 is 1, the square of 2 is 2, and the square of 3 is 9. Yep. So let's write another function, and this function is to combine maybe the two names. So I'm going to say define a function called combine names, and combine names takes first name, which is a string, and last name, which is also a string, and returns a string. And then we are just going to return our value here. I'm going to use string interpolation here, that we're going to combine with that. Then here is first name dot title. I want to capitalize the first letter. Then last name dot title, I want to capitalize also the first letter for the last name, and run this. Invalid syntax string, there should be a colon here, and that. So let's test if this is working. So first name is Dali, last name is Codes, and it returns Dali Codes with an underscore. So we're going to use this to create the name column for our data frame. So data frame name will be equal to data frame dot apply. So this time around I'm not subsetting the data frame before applying, because remember here we only subsetted the column, and here we were only subsetting particular rows, particular columns. So here I'm going to only to use the whole data frame. Then I'm going to use an anonymous function here, lambda row, and it should return combine names. So the row value should come from the column first name and last name. I'm going to explain this in a bit. So what's happening here is when we apply on the whole data frame and we specify the axis, so this axis equals to 1, so that we are picking rows, so it will apply for each row in the data frame, and this row here we can pick the rows values by subsetting the column that we need. So we are combining. This is the function that we have created here, and for each row we are picking the first name and the last name. The whole of this is an anonymous function, and this is the argument, the row in this anonymous function, and this is what it returns. And what it returns is a function that takes in the first name from that row and the last name in that row, and this combined function is the one that we created here. So when you run this and we do data frame to look at it. Let me make this one bigger. So we have the name created here, Dali Codes, MKBHD, Mr. Who's the Boss, Mr. Beast, KSI. Yeah, so that's it for today. Till tomorrow, consider subscribing, learn something, teach someone. Bye.